Hey everybody, how's it going? So today I wanted to go over this article on social media, Facebook, them knowing that it was screwing with the health of teenage girls and them seemingly not really doing much about it. And I wanted to go over this and just share some of my perspective. This is probably going to be a really long-winded video. I probably should have had bullet points for this or editing, and I don't. I'm kind of going to be all over the place here, so I apologize for that. So before I even get into this video, I just wanted to discuss my own personal biases. I have a personal bias anytime somebody says, you shouldn't, it's the application's fault, it's the tool's fault, it's the policy's fault. I tend to be individualistic in terms of that I'm always looking for how it is your fault or my fault. Because I believe that if I'm going to blame an app or a policy or a rule or something like that, rather than me, then that's an argument for taking away the app, for taking away the tool, for taking away the opportunity. And I'm kind of very biased towards freedom and as much personal freedom as possible. And I've always kind of felt that if you want to have as much freedom as possible, you have to take on as much accountability and responsibility as possible. Because if it's on me, well, I can change something, and if I change something, then I get access to the tool. If it's a tool's fault, well, then we have to ban the tool or make a law against the tool or limit your access to the tool, and then that winds up in less freedom for you. So I find it interesting that seems to be in direct conflict to my disgust with most modern social media platforms, and it's also in direct, what's the word I'm looking for? In direct conflict with my experience in these platforms and recognizing how at times they've taken a toll on my mental health. I'm someone who grew up with almost unfettered access to the internet. I got the internet later than most kids, but I did not have parents that were checking on everything I did. My parents were a far generation away from me. My dad decided to be a father, after he turned 40. So by the time I had a computer with the internet, he was close to retirement. He had virtually no experience with any of this shit. Even if he actually did, decide to foolishly waste $50 at the store on some sort of child monitoring app for the router or for the computer that makes sure I can't go to certain websites or say certain words, I would have just used a Knoppix Live CD, made it look like Windows so that when he's walking by, we just said, oh yeah, Lewis is on the computer today. And then taken his Live CD out at the end of it. He would have went into the app and, wow, it looks like he didn't do anything but go to, an encyclopedia website. Like, there was no chance for my parents to have any idea what I was doing on the internet. And I think that was actually a net plus. Had they seen the IRC channels I was in, the things I was doing in these IRC channels, the people I was talking to, the manner in which I was speaking, in general, at some point, I think that almost any good parent would have taken the computer and said, get the fuck out. And no, we're not having this in this house. And just broke the thing over his knee. And I think it is a good thing that I had that ability to independently explore the internet without parents being over my shoulder constantly. I think it helped me turn into the person that I am today. My ideas, my thoughts, and my worldviews, but also, above all, my childish behaviors, which I had many of them when I was 13, were challenged by people. And they were challenged by many people who were already adults. One of them was actually 10 years older than me and is one of my best friends today. She lives in California, and she didn't know that I was 13 when I started posting on one of these music websites. She just thought I was an immature jackass adult. And there was a lot of people that I met and spoke to, and it slowly shaped me into being a bit more mature as time went on, a bit more responsible. It helped me with my presentation skills. It helped me with with the lens through which I view the world, becoming one that's a bit more compatible with progress, honestly. And it was an experience that I wouldn't take back. BlackBerry, you got to stop doing that shit. You hear her? She's like doing the creepy meow. She does that every time I do a video. Now, that was a different internet than today's internet. Today's internet is a different internet because of something that I think started in 2004. When Web 2.0 became popular with Facebook and MySpace, people started putting their own names on everything. Prior to 2004, it was rare that I would see somebody using their real name on the internet for most of the sites they signed up at. It was normal that you don't let other people know enough about you ever be able to identify you. Make sure they don't have an idea where you live, don't have an idea what you do outside of a very vague description. Don't use your real name on these websites. And, most people did that because they were afraid of being harassed or screwed with or messed with. It was the early days of the internet. Like in the 90s, people had this feeling that if they used their credit card online, that their money was going to be stolen from them and they were going to get defrauded and nobody was going to send anything. And then in the 2000s, that kind of simmered down. But in the early 2000s, there was this weird fear about using your real name on the internet that Facebook and MySpace seemed to kind of wash away. And with people not using their real names, there was less of this type of dopamine hit type of competition that you have now, where people were actually getting that dopamine hit of people liking their posts on Instagram or liking their booty pic or liking their pic of them in some sort of fancy apartment or fancy car that means I'm so rich or whatever. Because if what they were liking was an anonymous character, it wasn't actually you. It wasn't like Louis Rossman, the person, his picture getting likes. It was some random pseudonym. So it didn't really encourage this type of feedback loop and a lot of the self-comparison that you see getting talked about in these documents the way it is today. And it's weird because I don't know if the type of experience that I had growing up on the internet would have been anywhere as productive or as engaging for me, or I guess, how to put this? Accelerating in my personal maturity the way it was in the late 90s to early 2000s. So at this point in my life, when it comes to social media, I honestly only use this piece of social media because it allows me to promote an issue that's important to me, and it also pays. I don't use forms of social media that try to fuck with me, that are not even going to have the decency of paying me for it. So with Facebook, they're always trying to figure out, like, how can we keep you on the platform? How can we suck you into the platform? How can we make sure that you spend every fucking waking moment of your life, drunk waiting for the next notification, drunk waiting for the next dopamine hit of somebody liking your thing? How can we always shove something into your feed to suggest to make sure you stay on this platform? Or the things that Instagram does. I don't want to be involved with that, or those short little Twitter wars people have that get inspired by the way it just kind of tosses people into echo chambers and encourages negative, brash impulsivity. I don't want to be a part of that so that somebody else can make money. On YouTube, I started to notice that sort of shit around 2015. And I started to, once it hit over 1,000 subscribers, I started to notice how weird this type of interaction gets. And I just said, I don't want to be a part of any of these social media platforms. I deleted most of my major social media platforms, and I kept YouTube because A, it allowed me to promote my business, B, it allowed me to vent to some extent, but C, admittedly, they paid. So every other platform is fucking with me, and they don't even pay you. YouTube is probably fucking with you as much as every other platform is in terms of constantly trying, they get you in a political echo chambers really easy. If you have one particular worldview, YouTube is going to make sure that you keep that fucking worldview by constantly berating you with content that reinforces your worldview. If you think vaccines are the next coming of Jesus Christ, it is going to constantly bombard you with content about how those anti-vax people are pieces of shit. If you are somebody who is skeptical about vaccines, it is going to encourage you to view content over and over and over and over again about how everybody else that is talking about pro-vaccine stuff is, are evil, horrible people that want to ruin the world, ruin the country. If you are politically conservative, that is the worldview. If you are very politically liberal, that is the world. Everybody else is evil. It finds a way to constantly reinforce your worldview by sending you content that is directly reinforcing of your pre-existing worldview. It creates insane echo chambers, regardless of what side of any political aisle or any issue you're on. YouTube is really, really good at doing that. It's also good with the comment section of kind of encouraging people to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They have a horrible communication system in general. But I kind of realized that none of this stuff is actually healthy. And I went to delete all of it. And the one piece I didn't delete was YouTube because people found our business through it. And once I originally turned on monetization, I think the first month I got $50, and it's like, okay, you know what? Don't get me wrong, it's probably a bad decision. This is probably not the best thing for my mental health, but at least they're going to give me $50. With this, I'm making Mark Zuckerberg rich at the expense of my mental health. Screw that. So I kept YouTube. But I got rid of everything else. Right now, I have a Twitter that I don't actually even use, just for the nonprofit, and a Facebook that, again, I don't even log into. It's literally just for the nonprofit, for seeking out people to contribute to the Repair Wiki. But I don't actually use my Facebook to interact, speak with family, have political arguments, or any of that horseshit, or check who liked. I don't give a fuck who liked any of my posts on Facebook, because I don't even make any. So I wanted to read this article here and just kind of go through it. It says, Facebook knows Instagram is toxic for teen girls. Company documents show. Its own in-depth research shows a significant teen mental health issue that Facebook plays down in public. About a year ago, teenager started seeing a therapist. She had developed an eating disorder and had a clear idea of what led to it, her time on Instagram. She joined the platform at 13 and eventually was spending 3 hours a day entranced by the seemingly perfect lives and bodies of the fitness influencers who posted on the app. When I went on Instagram, all I saw were images of chiseled bodies, perfect abs, and women doing 100 burpees in 10 minutes, said Ms. Vlasova, now 18, who lives in Reston, Virginia. Around that time, researchers inside Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, were studying this kind of experience and asking whether it was part of a broader phenomenon. And again, this is just not something I remember people doing on the internet in 2002. Like, again, you could image search to find people who were in better shape than you, but you weren't like bombarded with platforms where you were seeing people constantly competing for likes and views and subscribers based on their physical appearance. I don't think that was as much of the internet 20 years ago as it is now. Their findings confirm some serious problems. 32% of teen girls said that when they felt bad about their bodies, Instagram made them feel worse, the researchers said in a March 2020 slide presentation posted to Facebook's internal message board, reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. Comparisons on Instagram can change how young women view and describe themselves. For the past 3 years, Facebook has been conducting studies into how its photo-sharing app affects its millions of young users. Repeatedly, the company's researchers found that Instagram is harmful for a sizable percentage of them, most notably teenage girls. We make body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teen girls, said one slide from 2019, summarizing research about teen girls who experienced the issues. And that's something that we're going to be tossing in for something we see later. Teens blame Instagram for increases in the rate of anxiety and depression, said another slide. This reaction was unprompted and consistent across all groups. Among teens who reported suicidal thoughts, 13% of British users and 6% of American users traced the desire to kill themselves to Instagram, one presentation showed. Expanding its base of young users is vital to the company's more than $100 billion in annual revenue, and it doesn't want to jeopardize their engagement with the platform. More than 40% of Instagram's users are 22 years old and younger, and about 22 million teens log on to Instagram in the U.S. each day, compared with 5 million teens logging on to Facebook, where young users have been shrinking for a decade, the materials show. On average, teens in the U.S. spend 50% more time on Instagram than they do on Facebook. Instagram is well positioned to resonate and win with young people, said a researcher's slide posted internally. Another post said there is a path to growth if Instagram can continue their trajectory. In public, Facebook has consistently played down the app's negative effect on teens, and hasn't made its research public or available to academics or lawmakers who have asked for it. The research we've seen is that using social apps to connect people with other people can have positive mental health benefits, CEO Mark Zuckerberg said at a congressional hearing in March 2021 when asked about children and mental health. Now, for me, I'm not saying I don't want to have access to certain pieces of social media. I'm not saying that I want to be banned from it, that they should be illegal or anything else, or heavily regulated. But it's very similar to, like, how about this? It's like a chocolate cookie, you know? I mean, it's one thing to say I should have the freedom to have a chocolate cookie, but how many people honestly truly feel healthier, better about themselves after they eat the fucking chocolate cookie than before? I don't mean like I just ate something that's tasty, but I feel like I have improved myself by doing this. And I do not see how your average everyday person comes away from any of these social media platforms thinking I'm mentally healthier because of it. That was an annoying political argument, but okay, now I know my uncle thinks that. Oh wow, I just wasted 40 minutes of my life that I could have spent doing anything productive, going down a rabbit hole. But I really don't meet a lot of people that think that there's a lot of positive mental health benefits to using this stuff. But I'm curious what people in the comments think below. In May, Instagram head Adam Masseri told reporters that the research he had seen suggests the app's effect on teen well-being is likely quite small. In quotes. In a recent interview, Mr. Masseri said, "In no way do I mean to diminish these issues." Wow. I don't mean to diminish these issues, but it's quite small. Oh, come on. Some of the issues mentioned in the story aren't necessarily widespread, but their impact on people may be huge. He said he believes Facebook was late to realizing there were drawbacks to connecting people in such large numbers. "I've been pushing very hard for us to embrace our responsibilities more broadly," he said. "I think that part's bullshit because as far back as 2014, they were doing psychological experiments on users where they would present you with a bunch of sad content in your feed, and then they would have some people, they would only focus on having the happy content posted and show up in their feed, and then they checked how it affected the moods of each group. And the people who were in the former group would actually start posting sadder content when they were constantly bombarded with sadder content. This is something that I wish Eli the computer guy was not constantly privating and unlisting his videos, because he had an amazing 2-hour episode on this 7 years ago where he just absolutely cursed out Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook overdoing this. And his 2-hour video really did it did a deep dive into the psychological experiments that Facebook was doing on users. So to say that they were late to realizing there were drawbacks to connecting people in such large numbers is the most weaselly words bullshit that I've ever heard since Apple claiming they didn't really know that there was an issue with 2011 GPUs until 2015. That's just weasel word bullshit. Because again, they were doing research on this shit 7 fucking years ago. And if Eli the computer guy is watching this, if you could kindly publicize that beautiful daily blog Facebook rant that you did 5 or 7 years ago. It was amazing. It was really well cited, good stuff. He read through it. It was beautiful. Tons of middle fingers for Zuckerberg there. And I think it was really, really well done. Eli the computer guy is a very interesting way of putting things. And that video was just, he explained it way better than I ever could. He said the research into the mental health effect on teens was valuable, and that Facebook employees asked tough questions about the platform. "For me, this isn't dirty laundry. I'm actually very proud of this research," he said. He's kind of pulling a Trump there, which is anytime you get called out on something or something like, never back down, never be embarrassed, never go, "Oh yeah, we should have done something different there, that was wrong." Never do that. I think he's kind of learning from Trump there, because that did work for Trump for like 4 or 5 years. Just never back down, never admit wrongdoing, even when there's just evidence right in front of you that you may have done something kind of fucked up or kind of wrong. Just never back down. And it seems like that's the strategy that he's taking there. And, you know, can you really blame him when a strategy works for someone for so long and so in a public fashion? Some features of Instagram could be harmful to some users, and they aren't easily addressed, he added. There's a lot of good that comes with what we do. What Facebook knows. The Instagram documents form part of a trove of internal communications reviewed by the Journal on areas including teen mental health, political discourse, and human trafficking. They offer an unparalleled picture of how Facebook is acutely aware that the products and systems central to its business success routinely fail. The documents also show that Facebook has made minimal efforts to address these issues and plays them down in public. The company's research on Instagram, the deepest look yet at what the tech giant knows about its impact on teens and their mental well-being, represents one of the clearest gaps revealed in the documents between Facebook's understanding of itself and its public position. Its effort includes focus groups, online surveys, and diary studies in 2019 and 2020. It also includes large-scale surveys of tens of thousands of people in 2021 that paired user responses with Facebook's own data about how much time users spent on Instagram and what they saw there. 1 in 5 teens say that Instagram makes them feel worse about themselves, with UK girls the most negative. Interesting. Teens who struggle with mental health say Instagram makes it worse. Young people are acutely aware that Instagram can be bad for their mental health, yet are compelled to spend time on the app for fear of missing out on cultural or social trends. Yep. Very small effect, if anything. Teens specifically call out the following ways that Instagram harms their mental health. Now, this is an interesting slide for me. I'm just going to zoom in on this a little bit, because this one is one where it's really difficult for me to specifically tie stuff like this to a social media platform. Pressure to conform to social stereotypes. Again, I spent some time in school before most kids had the internet. That's been there a long time. Pressure to match the money and body shapes of influencers. Admittedly, my pre-internet time alive was before we really cared about money and body shape so much. The need for validation, views, likes, followers. The need for validation in teenagers among other people that are around has always been there. Friendship conflicts, bullying, and hate speech, or getting bullied by other people. That's a problem as old. That problem predates the internet. Over-sexualization of girls. I think a lot of people that went to high school during the 70s, 80s, or 90s may argue that this is a trend that started before most people had modems, and inappropriate advertisements targeted to vulnerable groups. Admittedly, that's one that's probably unique here. A lot of the stuff is really, the platform is just kind of amplifying elements of society that already existed and making them worse. But a lot of this stuff already existed, and these were already problems facing teenagers that were causing serious issues and causing cats like Blackberry to meow like little witches from Salem, Massachusetts 500 years ago. Blackberry, what are you doing? These were considerable problems in society long before Instagram. It's just these platforms tend to. It's kind of like Dave Ramsey says, when you have more money, it makes you more of what you already are. If you're anxious, the money will make you more anxious. If you are an addict, it'll make you addicted. You'll have more money for your addiction. If you're generous, it makes you more generous. If you're a douchebag, it makes you a bigger douchebag. These platforms seem to be just amplifying things that already exist. They came to the conclusion that some of the problems were specific to Instagram and not social media more broadly. That is especially true concerning so-called social comparison, which is when people assess their own value in relation to the attractiveness, wealth, and success of others. Social comparison is worse on Instagram, states Facebook's deep dive into a teen girl body image issues in 2020, noting that TikTok, a short video app, is grounded in performance, while users on Snapchat, a rival photo and video sharing app, are sheltered by jokey filters that keep the focus on the face. In contrast, Instagram focuses heavily on the body and lifestyle. Again, is it Instagram that focuses on the body and lifestyle, or is it that people choose to use this platform in that way to focus on the body and lifestyle? I used to have an Instagram. I deleted it. 99% of the pictures I posted did not include me or my body. I just used it to post random shit that I saw from time to time, and then I just wound up deleting it at some point because it's like, why am I giving Mark Zuckerberg material with which to advertise on? It was just part of my little protest. I do not want to make social media companies money if they are not sharing that money with me. It wasn't even like my personal desire to become rich. It was just a principled matter. Like, why am I giving this platform all of this material with which to profit off of when they're not sharing any of the money with me? It just seemed. I had a good friend at the time that proposed it to me this way, and when he proposed it to me that May, it really didn't make any sense. Like, I'm giving you massive amounts of personal material to make money off of, and it's not even like you're sharing 0.1% with me. You share zero, just GTFO. But when I did use it, I never used it that way. So it is one of those things. Is there something particular about Instagram that, is it Instagram focusing on the body, or is it that the users have chosen to use the platform that way? The features that Instagram identifies as most harmful to teens appear to be at the platform's core. The tendency to share only the best moments, a pressure to look perfect, and an addictive product can send teens spiraling towards eating disorders, an unhealthy sense of their own bodies, and depression, March 2020 internal research states. It warns that the Explore page, which serves users photos and videos curated by an algorithm, can send users deep into content that can be harmful. Aspects of Instagram exacerbate each other to create a perfect storm, the research states. The research has been reviewed by top Facebook executives and was cited in a 2020 presentation given to Zuckerberg, according to the documents. At a congressional hearing this March, Mr. Zuckerberg defended the company against criticism from lawmakers about plans to create a new Instagram product for children under 13. When asked if the company had studied the app's effects on children, he said, "I believe the answer is yes." Also, if you're ever under congressional if you're ever convened to testify before Congress, always say "I believe" or "I don't recall." It's just something to remember, because if you say "I believe the answer is yes," you're not lying under oath because you believe it. But it doesn't mean the answer is actually yes. Or if you say "I don't remember," that's not a yes or a no, and we don't have a way to test whether or not you remember something. So it's just one of those ways to be a weasel and get away with it. And at some point, I may be at that point where I am cornered into a place where I don't want to potentially go to prison because I said the wrong thing, but I also don't want to be seen as evil, or I'm saying "I believe," or "I think," or "I don't remember," instead of giving an actual straightforward fucking answer. I'm going to be sad when that day comes. I'm going to be sad when that day comes where I'm forced to be a weasel. And I do hope that day never comes. Maybe I hope it does. You never know. Maybe by then, that probably mean I'm a multimillionaire by then, or powerful or something. But I always love the answers that they give here. It's like you can never give a fucking straight answer to this shit. God forbid you actually say yes or no. Anyway, In August, Senator Richard Blumenthal and Marsha Blackburn, in a letter to Mr. Zuckerberg, called on him to release Facebook's internal research on the impact of its platforms on your youth mental health. In response, Facebook sent the senators a 6-page letter that didn't include the company's own studies. Of course not. Why would you actually send what they fucking asked for? Instead, Facebook said there are many challenges with conducting research in this space, bullshit, saying we are not aware of a consensus among studies or experts about how much screen time is too much. You don't know how much is too much, but you know that people are spending too much on the platform. Fuck out of here. According to a copy of the letter reviewed by the Journal. This also then really does beg the question. If people are spending too much time using a tool, at what point is it the tool's fault versus mine? Now, obviously, these tools have a bunch of shit in there that is designed, specifically designed to ensure that you never leave the fucking platform. They tried to make this shit as addictive as humanly possible to completely turn your dopamine centers in your head upside down to the point where you're addicted to this shit, where your sense of accomplishment comes from these platforms. And I still have this personal bias against blaming the platform, because when you blame it instead of me, well, now we can solve it by, instead of adjusting my behavior, we can solve it by just getting rid of the platform or regulating it heavily, which means less freedom in general. And I tend to disagree with anything that means less freedom. I like freedom. I want to have freedom to use the tools that I use, to watch what I want to watch, to speak to who I want to speak to. But again, it really is that question when you have people that are going out of their way to develop these insanely addictive platforms. There's this one really good documentary, The Social Dilemma, that goes over this very well. And they know what they're doing. And then they testify with these Weasley words, and we can't release this, and we're not sure about this, that, or the other. Like, what do you do with that? Facebook's answers were so evasive, failing to even respond to all of our questions, that they really raise questions about what Facebook might be hiding, Senator Blumenthal said in an email. Facebook seems to be taking a page from the textbook of big tobacco, targeting teens with potentially dangerous products while masking the science in public. Mr. Mosseri said in the recent interview, "We don't send research out to regulators on a regular basis for a number of reasons." He added Facebook should figure out a way to share high-level overviews of what the company is learning, and that he also wanted to give external researchers access to Facebook data. He said the company's plan for Instagram Kids product, which state attorneys general have objected to, is still in the works. When told of Facebook's internal research, Jean Chuang, a professor of psychology at San Diego State University, who has published research finding that social media is harmful for some kids, said it was a potential turning point in the discussion about how social media affects teens. If you believe that R.J. Reynolds should have been more truthful about the link between smoking and lung cancer, then you should probably believe that Facebook should be more upfront about links to depression among teen girls, she said. Race for teen users. When Facebook paid $1 billion for Instagram in 2012, it was a tiny startup with 13 employees and already a hit. That year, Facebook for the first time had observed a decline in the number of teens using its namesake Facebook product, according to the documents. The company would come to see Instagram as Facebook's best bet for growth among teens. Facebook had been tracking the rise of buzzy features on competitor apps, including Snapchat, and in 2016 directed employees to focus on winning what they viewed as a race for teen users, according to former Instagram executives. Instagram made the photos the app's focus, with filters that made it easy for users to edit images. It later added videos, feeds of algorithmically chosen content, and tools that touched up people's faces. Before long, Instagram became the most online equivalent of the high school cafeteria, a place for teens to post their best photos, find friends, size each other up, brag, and bully. Again, finding friends, posting best photos, whether you're, sharing them on Instagram or something else, bragging and bullying. This all really just sounds like a horrible high school on crack. Facebook's research indicates Instagram's efforts aren't harmful for all users. For most teenagers, the effects of negative social comparison are manageable and can be outweighed by the app's utility as a fun way for users to express themselves and connect with friends, the research says. But a mounting body of Facebook's own evidence shows Instagram can be damaging for many. In one study of teens in the US and UK, Facebook found more than 40% of Instagram users who reported feeling unattractive said the feeling began on the app. 40% of people who reported feeling unattractive, so the feeling began on the app. Now, again, it does beg the question, if it wasn't for Instagram, Would teenage girls feel unattractive because they saw a specific commercial, because they saw a billboard advertisement? Like, it's kind of being, is Instagram making it worse? Or is Instagram just the scapegoat because that's what people are focusing on it? About a quarter of the teens who reported feeling not good enough said the feeling started on Instagram. Many also said the app undermined their confidence in the strength of their friendships. Instagram's researchers noted that those struggling with the platform's psychological effects weren't necessarily logging off. Teens regularly reported wanting to spend less time on Instagram, the presentations note, but lacked the self-control to do so. And this is something I notice with people who become addicted to trading apps or Robinhood or Ameritrade or whatever the fuck else they're using for trading stocks. They want their life back. They don't want, it's almost not worth the money that they're making anymore to stare at red and green candles and chart things and read about them online and have this fear of, oh my God, what if it goes down? Oh my God, what if I miss out from 9:30 a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m.? But they can't fucking do it. It destroys their brain knowing that they're not in it. It's very similar to the addiction I see a lot of people developing to day trading now. Teens told us that they don't like the amount of time they spend on the app, but feel like they have to be present. An Instagram research manager explained to colleagues, according to the documents. They often feel addicted and know that what they're seeing is bad for their mental health, but they feel unable to stop themselves. And if people are using Instagram more instead of Facebook, and they need to continue growing users, they may know that. It's just, do we really want to focus on that? Who cares? During the isolation of the pandemic, if you wanted to show your friends what you were doing, you had to go on Instagram, said Destiny Ramos, 17, of Neenah, Wisconsin. We're leaning towards calling it an obsession. Miss Ramos and her friend Isabel Yablowski believe this posed a potential health problem to their community, so they decided to survey their peers as part of a national science competition. They found that 98% of those who responded, nearly 90% said social media negatively affected their mental health. Of the 98 students responded, nearly 90% said that social media negatively affected their mental health. Ouch. In focus groups, Instagram employees heard directly from teens who were struggling. I feel like I had a fight to be considered pretty or even visible. One teen said of her experience on Instagram. After looking through photos on Instagram, I feel like I am too big and not pretty enough, another teen told Facebook's researchers. It made me feel insecure about my body, even though I know I am skinny. For some people, it might be tempting to dismiss this as teen girls being sad, said Dr. Twenge. But we're looking at clinical level depression that requires treatment. Excuse me. We're talking about self-harm that lands people in the ER. Kick in the gut. Eva Berenz, a 17-year-old student at Redwood High School in Marin County, California, said she estimates half the girls at her grade struggle with body image concerns tied to Instagram. Every time I feel good about myself, I go over to Instagram and then it all goes away, she said. And this is something I find similar to people who are addicted to stock trading. Every time they're feeling good about their day, they look and it's A, I'm down money, or B, I would have been up more if I bought more. I would have been up more if I didn't sell now. Or it's always, it's like it's the same general pattern. It's very similar to the pattern I noticed developing among people with this day trading addictions, where they feel good about their day, they feel good about themselves, they feel confident, and then they look at a chart, or they look at a news piece, or they look at something. It could have been better. I could look better. I could be living more successfully. I could have posted what that person posted. I could have bought this thing. Why didn't I buy this 5 days ago? I'm up $1,000. I could have been up 10,000 if I did this. Or wow, I'm down. I wouldn't have been down if I had set a stop. Like it's a very similar thing where you feel good, you look at the app, and it just takes the dopamine centers of your head and fucking destroys them. When her classmate Molly Pitts, 17, arrived at high school, she found her peers using Instagram as a tool to measure their relative popularity. Students referred to the number of followers their peers had as if the number was stamped in their forehead, she said. Now, she said, when she looks at the number of followers on Instagram, it is most often a kick in the gut. I really do wonder if subconsciously the number of subscribers that I have on YouTube affects my feeling of confidence and self-worth. I'm very curious if that's actually a thing. Like, how much of that has entered my identity? I'm very curious of how because I don't think it affects me, but I can't really know for sure because I'm me and I would naturally hide certain elements of things because, as I've said, I think people always lie to themselves, and I think people are lying to themselves about a lot, and you can't really figure that out until someone else helps you sort it out. I don't feel like I have that number stamped on my head, But I'm also in a different area because I'm not comparing it with other people. Most of the people that are involved in my life don't have YouTube channels. For years, there's been little debate among medical doctors that for some patients, Instagram and other social media exacerbate their conditions. Angela Garda, director for the Eating Disorders Program at Johns Hopkins Hospital and associate professor of psychiatry in the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, said it's common for her patients to say they learn from social media tips for how to restrict food intake or purge. She estimates that Instagram and other social media apps play a role in disorders of about half her patients. It's the one who are the most vulnerable or are developing a problem. The use of Instagram and other social media can escalate it, she said. Lindsay Dubin, 19, recently wanted to exercise more. She searched Instagram for workouts and found some she liked. Since then, the app's algorithm has filled her Explore page with photos on how to lose weight, the ideal body type, and what she should and shouldn't be eating. This is very similar to YouTube, where you'll watch one video on one topic, whether it is, I like this politician, I dislike this politician, I like this person, I dislike this person, I like this cause, I dislike this cause, and it will send you on a fucking rabbit hole to ensure, guarantee, that whatever thoughts you already had, it's going to find you content that reinforces that particular worldview and hide all the content that is contrary to that particular worldview. And it's those algorithms that try to keep you on the platforms that really wind up developing personalities of their own that I think the people who develop the platforms, who started these platforms, lose control of entirely. And then it winds up screwing with the user. And what she should and shouldn't be eating. I'm pounded with it every time I go on Instagram, she said. Jonathan Haidt, a social psychologist at New York University Stern School of Business and co-author of the bestseller The Coddling of the American Mind, has been concerned about the effects of social media on teens since he started studying it in 2015. He has twice spoken with Mr. Zuckerberg about Facebook's effect on teen mental health, the first time after the CEO reached out in 2019. Mr. Zuckerberg indicated that on the issues of political polarization in teen mental health, he believed that the research literature was contradictory and didn't point clearly to any harmful casual effects. According to Mr. Haidt, he said he felt Mr. Zuckerberg at the time was a partisan but curious. I asked Mark to help us out as parents, he said. Mark said he was working on it. Yeah, it's the same thing that I often tell people when we talk about cleaning out the basement of the store. In January 2020, Facebook invited Mr. Haidt to its Menlo Park, California headquarters, where Mr. Messeri and Instagram staff briefed him on the platform's efforts to combat bullying and reduce social pressure on the platform. Mr. Haidt said he found those efforts sincere and laudable, but warned that they likely weren't enough to battle what he believes is mounting public health epidemic. It was not suggested to me that they had internal research showing a problem, he said. The Facebook spokeswoman declined to comment on the interaction. Some Instagram researchers said it was challenging to get other colleagues to hear the gravity of their findings. Plus, we're standing directly between people and their bonuses, one former researcher said. Again, the people that are doing this research, the people that are working for the company producing a lot of this stuff, are producing stuff that, if you pursue it, wow, people are addicted to our platform. Yeah, but people being addicted to our platform makes us money. It's like Altria Group putting their resources into ensuring less people smoke. It just goes counter to their incentive structures as a corporation. And good luck getting anybody to act against their own interests. Instead of referencing their own data showing the negative effects of Instagram, Facebook executives in public have often pointed to studies from the Oxford Internet Institute that have shown little correlation between social media use and depression, which, again, I really question the methodology of those studies. Other studies also found discrepancies between the amount of time people say they use social media and the amount of time they actually use such services. Mr. Messeri has pointed to these studies as evidence for why research using self-reported data may not be accurate. Facebook has in the past been a donor to research at the Oxford Institute, which is part of the research and teaching department of Britain's Oxford University. Oxford's lead researcher on the studies, Andrew, not even going to try, who said he didn't receive funding from Facebook, said companies like Facebook need to be more open about their research. The data exists within the tech industry, he said. Scientists just need to be able to access it for neutral and independent investigation. In an interview, Dude said, people talk about Instagram like it's a drug, but we can't study the active ingredient. Facebook executives have struggled to find ways to reduce Instagram's harm while keeping people on the platform, according to an internal presentation on the topic. For years, Facebook experimented with hiding the tallies of likes that users see on their photos. Teens told Facebook and focus groups that like counts caused them anxiety and contributed to their negative feelings. When Facebook tested a tweak to hide the likes in a pilot program they called Project Daisy, it found it didn't improve life for teens. We didn't observe movements in overall well-being measures, Facebook employees wrote in a slide they presented to Mr. Zuckerberg about the experiment in 2020. Nonetheless, Facebook rolled out the change as an option for Facebook and Instagram users in May of 2021 after senior executives argued to Mr. Zuckerberg that it could make them look good by appearing to address the issue according to the documents. A Daisy launch would be received by press and parents as a strong positive indication that Instagram cares about its users, especially when taken alongside other press-positive launches. Facebook executives wrote in a discussion about how to present their findings to Mr. Zuckerberg. When Facebook rolled out Project Daisy, Mr. Mosseri acknowledged publicly that the feature didn't actually change much about how users felt. In the interview, he said he doesn't think there are clear-cut solutions to fixing Instagram. He said he is cautiously optimistic about tools Instagram is developing to identify people who are in trouble and to try to nudge them towards more positive content. Facebook made 2 researchers available to discuss their work. They said they are also testing a way to ask users if they want to take a break from Instagram. Part of the challenge, the researchers said, is they struggle to determine which users face the greatest risk. The researchers also said that the causality of some of their findings was unclear and noted some of the studies had small sample sizes. Admittedly, like the one where they were talking about whether social media made people feel better or not that was done amongst those teenagers, they interviewed, they dealt with 98 people. I think anything and everything should be on the table, Mr. Mosseri said, but we have to be honest and embrace that there's trade-offs here. It's not as simple as turning something off and thinking it gets better, because often you make things worse unintentionally. Zeroed in on selfies. In the internal documents, Facebook's researchers also suggested that Instagram could surface fun filters rather than ones around beautification. They zeroed in on selfies, particularly filtered ones that allow users to touch up their faces. Sharing or viewing filtered selfies in stories made people feel worse, the researchers wrote in January. Sylvia Colt-Lacayo, a 20-year-old at Stanford University, said she recently tried out a face filter that thinned her cheeks and made them pink. But then Ms. Colt-Lacayo realized the filter had minimized her cheeks that she inherited from her Nicaraguan father and made them look more European. That gave her a bitter taste in my mouth, she said. Ms. Colt-Lacayo uses a wheelchair, and in the past, Instagram made her feel like she didn't look the way she was supposed to, or do things that other teen girls in the app were doing, she said. She said she began following people who use wheelchairs or who are chronically ill or refer to other disabilities, and the platform became a place she could see images of older disabled people just being happy. In March, the researchers said Instagram should reduce exposure to celebrity content about fashion, beauty, and relationships, while increasing exposure to content from close friends, according to a slide deck they uploaded to Facebook's internal message board. A current employee in the comments on the message board questioned that idea, saying that celebrities with perfect lives are a key to the app. Isn't that what Instagram is mostly about, he wrote. Getting a peek at the very photogenic life of the top 0.1%. Isn't that the reason why teens are on the platform? And again, this really does show. What's the point of doing research on how something is negatively going to affect people when what's negatively affecting them is causing them to spend more time on the platform that you're developing and making money off of? A now former executive questioned the idea of overhauling Instagram to avoid social comparison. People use Instagram because it's a competition, the former executive said. That's the fun part. Define fun. To promote more positive use of Instagram, the company had partnered with nonprofits to promote what it calls emotional resilience, according to the documents. Videos produced as part of that effort include recommending that teens consider daily affirmations to remind themselves that I am in control of my experience on Instagram. Facebook's researchers identified the over-sexualization of girls as something that weighs in the mental health of the app's users. Siobhan Jones, a licensed clinical social worker based in Atlanta, said this can affect black girls, especially because people often assume black girls are older than they are and critique the bodies of black girls more frequently. What girls often see on social media are girls with slimmer waists, bigger butts, and hips, and it can lead to them having body image issues, Ms. Jones said. It's a very critical time, and they are trying to figure out themselves and everything around them. Teen boys aren't immune. In the deep dive Facebook's researchers conducted into mental health in 2019, they found that 14% of boys in the U.S. said Instagram made them feel worse about themselves. In their report on body image in 2020, Facebook's researchers found that 40% of teen boys experienced negative social comparison. I just feel on edge a lot of the time, a teen boy in the U.S. told Facebook's researchers. It's like you can be called out for anything you do. One wrong move, one wrong step. Many of the teens interviewed for this article said they didn't want Instagram to disappear. Ms. Vlasova, who no longer uses Instagram, said she is skeptical Facebook's executives have tried hard enough to make their platform less toxic. I had to live with my eating disorder for 5 years, and people on Instagram are still suffering, she said. And that really does beg the question, how much of the toxicity is the platform, and how much of that toxicity is human nature? Wanting to compare ourselves with other people, wanting to create that hierarchy and climb to the top of it, wanting the attention of other people, wanting to be better than our neighbors and wanting to show off to our neighbors, all of this stuff, bullying, how much of this is Facebook and Instagram, and how much of this is just the toxicity of the human experience in and of itself? It's a good question. I wanted to go through some of the documents that they had here. Let's just go through Foxit PDF Reader over here. So let's just read through some of these slides. So this is some of the findings that they made. Teens generally agree on the definition of mental health, what falls in the category and the language. 82% of teens have felt at least one emotional issue in the past month. 1 in 5 have thought about suicide or self-injury. Teens say Instagram has had a positive impact on their mental health, but those who are unsatisfied with their lives are more negatively affected by the app. Now, that's a really important one over there. Let's go over that. Teens say Instagram has had a positive impact on their mental health, but those who are unsatisfied with their lives are more negatively affected by the app. In my opinion, weasel words. Who's satisfied with their life? Like, ask the average American right now. How many Americans can you say, I'm fully satisfied with my life? I'm 100% satisfied with my life. Probably not a lot of them. Probably not a lot of them, especially after the last year and a half. So when you say that they think it's positive on their mental health, yeah, the people who are satisfied with their life. But I would argue that lots of people right now are not fully satisfied with their life. But then that also begs the question, is it your fault the way an application makes you feel about your mental health if you're already not satisfied with your life? Harm on Instagram falls into 3 major categories: social comparison, social pressure, and negative interactions with other people. Teens feel like they have to cope alone, but they want help. Product suggestions include personalized explore and feed, better time spent tools, and opting out of personally triggering ad categories. Outreach suggestions include a page about feeling good about yourself. I just wanted to, because there was a few things that I saw in here that were particularly interesting. And I wanted to, I don't think it was in this document. The one that I found the most interesting in this document was that people that were satisfied with their life said it positively affected their mental health. But how many of them are satisfied with their life? And also, for the ones that are not satisfied with their life, how many of them are not satisfied with their life as a result of their social media addiction? Let's see. What did I see on here before that was of interest to me? Teens blame Instagram for increases in the rates of anxiety and depression among teens. The reaction was unprompted and consistent amongst all groups. I mean, that's when you're saying that when you're saying that social media has a positive effect on people broad-based, I really think that when your own studies show that they blame it for increases in anxiety and depression, that's something to look at. It was one over here. Here we go. So teens and young adults on Instagram and Facebook. Now they're really focusing on are people engaging, are people joining, and a lot of this study, acquisition, retention, visitation, sessions. When Teen Health Scorecard, this is really more focused on the health of the website, the health of the platform, not the health of the user. They're really focused on, are you joining, are you retaining? And I get it. You really do need to focus on all this stuff to be successful as a company. But this really seems to be where a lot of their research was, and where a lot of this was focusing. Are young people engaging, and all of this kind of, ugh. Mental health findings. Let's check this out. Work school stress has the highest reach. Over half of the users experience sleep issues, body image issues, sadness, financial stress. SSI was the most intense. This pisses me off. What is that? Like social security income? I have no idea what SSI is. Not even a clue. It's the biggest one, but they don't. If I zoom in, does it say what SSI is down here? It's not social comparison. I have no idea what SSI is. SSI was the most negative experience across teens and adults. I have no clue what SSI is. People expect support from Instagram. I'm not sure what support you expect from a platform that allows you to post images and your thoughts. And they're probably not the people to support you because they're the ones profiting off of the demise of your mental health. Instagram is more likely to make things better than worse. Generally, users thought Instagram made things better or had no impact. However, they were more likely to think Instagram made problematic use worse, followed by social comparison, body image. So I guess what they're saying there is Instagram is likely to have a good effect on your life, but if it's having a bad effect on your life, you're probably stuck in a rabbit hole that you're not going to get out of. And also, their own research says over here, we make body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teen girls. Teens thought, generally, Instagram made things better, had no impact. However, they were also more split around problematic social media use and the role that they played in it. Social comparison, likes, counts. There's one piece in here that I found interesting, but I can't find it. Social comparison varies by country and is often worse for women. People receive about 5% as many likes on their own posts as those they see on Instagram. Seeing high like counts is associated with feeling worse. The threshold is different for friends. Likes have a bigger impact than comments on negative social comparison. It seems like it's going to... how about this? My take at the end of this is you can tell that there are things that these websites do to keep users engaged. And it's in trying to keep people engaged as forever that I think makes Facebook and Instagram somewhat complicit for the negative effects that these platforms have on people, even when a lot of those negative effects are involving standard human traits. I mean, the desire to compare yourself to others, the desire to climb a hierarchy, the desire to be at the top of that hierarchy and get more likes than everybody else, people bullying each other over what other people say, what other people do, or other people performing poorly on a platform. This is all stuff that existed far before the internet even existed. And I wouldn't blame Instagram or Facebook for making these things worse, because I don't think that they wanted to make things worse. I don't think that they're sitting there saying, let's figure out how to make more teenage girls commit suicide. But what they do, and what's very clear, is they try to figure out how can we keep you engaged in this platform? How can we make this shit as addictive as humanly possible? How can we fuck up the dopamine centers of your brain to the point where you're checking this thing constantly, nonstop, all day long? And I think they know what they're doing there. Now, when you go out of your way to make a platform as addictive as humanly possible, and that platform winds up having really negative effects on people different from addiction, they just wind up feeling bad about themselves or everything else. Can you hold Facebook and Instagram accountable for all those other negative consequences that occur as a result of the addiction that you didn't force them into, but you know you helped foster by trying to keep people on the platform constantly? Interesting discussion. I try to avoid these platforms as much as humanly possible. And honestly, even with YouTube, with all the experience I have on it, I still get stuck in a rabbit hole sometimes. I'll still get stuck. Why am I responding to this comment? Why do I care what this person says? Why did I let this affect me personally? Why did I let this affect the content that I post? Why do I feel sad after this? Like, it still messes with me. And I really do try to I try to be cognizant of it. But when I left Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, all those other platforms behind, I wound up finding other ways to take that self-comparative behavior, comparing to other people, or looking to climb a hierarchy, or looking to compare myself to others. I find that I just wound up finding different ways to do the exact same thing. This video is 53 minutes long. It really has no point. It has nothing tying it together, and I have no idea what I'm going to edit this. I'm just going to wind up posting this to the live channel as a throwaway. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. It's probably one of the shittier of the videos that I've done, so I will post it to the throwaway channel as a throwaway. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.